The median time to get approval to build a house there is 627 days. That's 217 days longer than it took to build the Empire State Building. You need 87 permits.
Bill Maher is clearly tired of California's non-stop rules and paperwork, and now he's calling it out publicly. He's aiming straight at the state's long-running one-party control, which he believes has made things worse instead of better.
California is the place that spends money and gets nothing, which is why you may have noticed when the fires broke out, no one escaped by high-speed rail. We have the highest marginal tax rate in America, higher than almost all other states, and soon Greenland.
Bill Maher, who is usually very careful about what he says, didn't hold back this time. He went all in while blasting California's government for wrecking the state he loves. His words were blunt, emotional, and non-stop, so if you haven't hit subscribe yet, now's the time, because this one gets intense fast.
There's also many regulations that aren't necessary. You really don't believe that the state we live in, California, is lacking regulation. There's over 300,000 regulations.
Well, maybe they're needed.
They're not. When I tried to put in a garage door, I had to have 3 inspections. There should have been none. I should be allowed to change my garage door.
Are you kidding? Really? It was about a garage door?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. That is...
No, you know this about California.
No, I don't.
Maher started by tearing into the heavy pile of rules choking California's housing market, and that was only the beginning. He described housing as a total bureaucratic mess, buried under endless permits, environmental checks, and approval steps that take years instead of months. But he made it clear the problem doesn't stop there. The same red tape is slowing down transportation projects and freezing infrastructure plans. California's once booming entertainment industry is now struggling under high compliance costs and strict union rules. Even the energy sector can't escape, stuck behind policies that make new ideas almost impossible. Maher said many of these rules may have started with good intentions, but they've gone way too far. Instead of helping people, they now protect waste and inefficiency. The result, he warned, is a California that builds nothing, fixes nothing, and slowly loses jobs, money, and opportunity to states that simply step out of their own way.
Well,
I'm sorry, I don't.
You've never heard that California is overtaxed and overregulated? That we are a one-party state where there's sort of no checks on that sort of extreme leftism. And that, what do you think?
I don't for a minute consider California a state that is extreme leftist. Not at all, not any way.
Well, that shows where your politics are. That's not where mine are. I'm sorry to tell you.
Maher puts the blame for this explosion of regulations directly on California's one-party control, and he says he's not exaggerating. In states like Pennsylvania, Arizona, or Georgia, elections can swing either way, so politicians feel real pressure. Every choice matters, and every mistake can cost them their job. But in California's political monopoly, that pressure disappears. When leaders know their seats are basically safe, urgency fades away. They can ignore rising housing costs, falling infrastructure, and crushing regulations without fear. At the heart of it all, politicians want one thing: staying in power. If cutting regulations doesn't threaten their careers, they won't care. But once their future is at risk, suddenly deals happen, reforms move faster, and solutions show up. Competition forces action. Comfort creates chaos.
Because the other part of the coalition are people who, they don't really like them that much. They just think the far left has gone so nutty on so many issues.
That's what they're being told.
That's what they...
By people like you.
Because it's true.
Now, it's hard to blame Jane Fonda for brushing off California's overregulation as just part of far-left politics. After all, she has more than enough money to absorb whatever the state throws at her. High housing costs, energy bills, permits, taxes, none of it really affects her lifestyle. For wealthy elites like Fonda, regulation is just an idea, not a daily struggle. But Maher doesn't give her a free pass. He says this disconnect explains why many Americans turn to Trump. Trump, rich as he is, understands something Hollywood often ignores. Regular people don't have endless money cushions. When rules pile up, average families feel it first, in rent, gas, power bills, and lost jobs. Maher argues people People didn't support Trump because he was perfect, but because he acknowledged their frustration. While elites speak from gated communities, working families are suffocating under policies made by people who never face the consequences.
We have spent the last 2 decades in perpetual drought here, yet almond farmers in California have doubled in that time, despite the fact that almond production alone uses more water than all the humans and businesses in San Francisco and Los Angeles combined, even on days when your teenage son spends 2 hours showering. How much water it takes to grow different crops, oranges, tomatoes, strawberries, all take about 11 gallons to make 1 pound. Almonds, 1,900 gallons. That wasn't a problem back when it rained, but now there simply isn't enough water to go around, and we have to make a painful choice, getting it to the people or getting it in the nuts.
Maher then turns his attention to California's farming industry, pointing out rules that are hurting the very communities they claim to protect. He notes that rainfall in the state has dropped over the last 20 years, and says water policy should have changed with the times. Instead, the government stays stubborn and ideological. Even more shocking, Maher highlights how a massive amount of California's limited water goes to almond farming, one of the thirstiest crops on the planet. While rural towns deal with water limits, dry wells, and shrinking incomes, billions of gallons are used to support almond exports. Maher calls this what it really is, not environmental care, but regulatory failure. Rules written decades ago don't match today's climate, yet officials refuse to let them go. The result is farmers struggling, residents suffering, food prices rising, and a state managing water shortages with policies that ignore basic math and common sense.
California agriculture accounts for 80% of our water use, even though California agriculture is less than 2% of our economy. We actually have enough water. We just give way too much of it to farmers who get their water subsidized by the government because we still act like it's 1890 and farmers are small and independent when they're really mostly part of big ag. And corporations get what they want in America.
Maher directly blames California's government for sending most of the state's water to agriculture and then subsidizing it. On top of that, even though California has moved far beyond a farming-based economy and is now driven by tech, entertainment, and services, its water rules are still stuck in the 1950s. Maher points out that many large farms today aren't small family operations. They're wealthy agribusinesses that could afford to pay the real cost of water. Instead, taxpayers cover the bill while cities face limits and residents are told to shorten their showers. Maher argues that subsidizing massive water use in a drought-prone state makes no economic or environmental sense. If water is scarce, it should be priced like something valuable. Protecting powerful farming interests, he warns, only increases inequality and forces everyday Californians to pay more for less year after year.
It's the vast network of regulators, administrators, inspectors, contract reviewers, project managers, fee assessors, special commissioners, zoning officers, and consultants whose jobs seem to be to make sure nothing ever happens and then charge you for it. The people who answer the phone, "Permit office, how may I hinder you?"
California's government system now feels designed to frustrate the very people it's supposed to serve, which helps explain why so many are leaving. From endless permits to overwhelming compliance rules, daily life has turned into a fight with paperwork and fees. So it's no surprise the exits keep growing. Just last month, several major energy companies packed up and left after being squeezed by high taxes and unfriendly regulations. When even billion-dollar corporations walk away, the message is clear, but it's not just businesses. Regular people are leaving too. Families, retirees, and young professionals who simply can't afford life anymore. Between income taxes, sales taxes, energy costs, and housing prices, many feel like they're working just to feed the government. Maher says this isn't progressive policy, it's economic self-destruction. When a state punishes productivity, people eventually leave.
I read that the current mayor of Chicago has an approval rating of 6.6%.
Round it up, 7.
I mean, you were just the ambassador to Japan. If that was your approval rating in Japan, they would do harakiri on live TV.
They would do it at 27.
I mean, what's going on in Chicago?
Look, I mean, we were talking about this a little earlier. I mean, you have also the mayor of New York not doing well. Obviously, other things also here in Los Angeles not doing well, the mayor here. Look, and then you got mayors, like the mayor of San Francisco and other cities that are doing well. So I would say, look, there is a general rule. I had this when I was mayor. Safe streets, strong schools, stable finances. Focus on those three things and your city's going to be fine.
Former Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel jumps into the discussion without hesitation, blaming much of California's crisis on local leadership. Emanuel says many mayors have forgotten the basic job of government. Instead of focusing on safety, education, and economic growth, they chase trendy political causes that barely improve daily life. He argues people don't vote for leaders to fight culture wars. They vote for safe streets, good schools, and strong businesses. Meanwhile, crime rises, classrooms struggle, and small businesses collapse under taxes and red tape, all while city halls argue over language, image, and virtue signaling. Emanuel sees this misplaced focus as a major reason California's cities feel harder to live in. When leaders ignore the basics, everything else falls apart. His warning is blunt: leadership driven by ideology instead of results doesn't just fail, it accelerates decline.
We've gone through 5 years where people became way too permissive in culture. They were all, which is why everything's locked up at Walgreens and CVS, and that is a disaster. And our school, and I'll say this about our schools: I don't want to hear another word about the locker room. I don't want to hear another word about the bathroom. You better start focusing on the classroom. We had the worst reading scores for 8th graders in 30 years. And nobody, not a governor, not a mayor, not a president, not a secretary of education, talking about it. We're all wrapped up. Look, in 7th grade, if I known that I could have said the word "they" and got in the girls' bathroom, I would have done it.
Rahm Emanuel gets even more specific, saying California schools have drifted far from their main goal, educating kids. He criticizes schools for turning classrooms into political battle zones instead of places to learn. Time and money that should go toward reading, math, and thinking skills are instead pushed into political messaging. Emanuel warns that schools are acting more like left-leaning policy centers than places focused on academic success. As test scores fall and learning gaps grow, administrators focus on ideology instead of outcomes. He stresses parents don't send children to school to be politically shaped. They send them to be educated and ready for real life. When schools abandon the basics, students suffer long-term consequences. Maher and his commentators paint a clear picture. California's one-party control and heavy regulation punish regular people, block innovation, and push money and talent out of the state. From housing and farming to energy and education, rigid rules have replaced common sense, leaving everyday citizens to carry the burden, while politicians chase ideology and job security instead of fixing safety, education, and economic growth. Wealthy elites shielded from the damage fail to understand daily struggles. Families, workers, and corporations leaving the state show the results. The message is simple: without accountability and a return to practical leadership, California risks turning opportunity into shortage and prosperity into frustration, slowly dragging a once golden state into painful decline. And that's where today's video ends. If you liked it, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.